alaikum everyone. Welcome all to our talk entitled Etiquettes of Islamic Morality. The idea of this talk came about in that it's about how we ought to be conducting ourselves in front of non-Muslims, and also saying we're supposed to be representatives, we're supposed to be emulating the way of the Prophet Muhammad. So how did he treat others who weren't Muslims in Islam? And obviously he was the best of akhlaq, he had the best of characteristics, and it's something which we should try and emulate ourselves as well. And thankfully and luckily we have Brother Imranali Panjwani here to take us through it. Brother Imranali graduated from the University of Sheffield in 2004 in law, and then decided to join the Al-Mahdi Institute in Birmingham to do a bachelor's and master's in Islamic jurisprudence, philosophy and Arabic. He then attended the College of Law to study on the legal practice course, and now he is currently doing a PhD. He's a PhD researcher in theology and religious studies at King's. And he also works for the Centre for Islamic Shia Studies in London as its research coordinator. So I now leave you in the capable hands of Brother Imranali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وخاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيد الأولين والآخرين شفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين صلى الله عليه وسلم. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنك على خلق عظيم. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters, and peace be upon all of you. Thank you for this very humble opportunity. May God increase our knowledge and piety in this gathering. The title, Etiquettes of Islamic Morality, and thinking of Muslims, non-Muslims, the first thing that came to my mind, or to be honest, the difficulty, is whether we should be talking about Muslims and non-Muslims, religion and sex when it comes to morality. And to be honest, when I was doing my research for this presentation, that is the first thing. Because I'll be honest with you that when you talk about morality, it's something very personal to me, and it's something personal to you. It transcends culture and sect and race, meaning that if I'm arrogant, speaking to you just now, or that I'm aggressive, my lecture fails. It's got nothing to do with religion, it's to do with my own personality. If a country is unjust, or the people running a country are unjust, and decide to invade another country, it's got nothing to do with religion, it's to do with the traits of human beings, or the traits of politicians running that country. So the first thing actually is, what do we mean by etiquettes and morality itself, even before we approach the Quran? Because when you talk about the Quran itself, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah verse 30, that He says that He has implanted in us fitrah, a natural inclination towards Allah and righteousness, and this is the true religion. That religion, in fact, is quite universal. It's something which encourages in us reflection. It's something which encourages me, before coming to the lecture, to balance myself in the way that I speak to you. And that is an innate human constitution. Can you see that? That is very different from saying it's a religious constitution. Very different from saying it's a Shia constitution, or a Muslim or non-Muslim constitution. Allah is proclaiming that this is a very factual essence of human beings. And that is very, very profound. So my introduction, therefore, would be, well, what is ethics itself? What do we mean by ethics? Now, you're all intelligent, you're all sort of university students, I don't need to tell you this. But when you talk about ethics, you're talking about where right and wrong come from, and how you make standards of right and wrong. That's what ethics is. It's to do with our individual disposition, is to do with society's disposition. When you talk about the origin of right and wrong, and we'll go into the categories of ethics, and then you talk about what standards right and wrong should be and how you determine those standards, that is precisely the discipline of ethics. And that's why you find philosophers debating with each other, and you have Kant, and you have Bentham and Mill, or you have the ethics of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Zain al-Abidin, because each one is trying to say, well, no, this is the source of ethics. So when Zain al-Abidin says in Risalat al-Hukuk that first and foremost, the greatest right over us is that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. And then he goes on to Hukuk al-Nafs, rights of the self, and internal ethics. Others such as Bentham or Mill would say, no, that which gives the greatest pleasure or happiness is the best thing to do, or the good thing to do. Can you see that? Each is looking at something very differently. One, for example, Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, is looking at it in terms of a basic revelation of basic morality, and other is looking at it in terms of utility and risk. So we need to go into the categories of ethics. Salawat, please. There are several categories. I've chosen, I think, 5, which are the main ones which you have heard of. And then I'll look at the Quran. The first is meta-ethics, which I'm sure you all know. Meta-ethics basically is, well, where do right and wrong come from? Does it come from revelation? Does it come from what people decide, like in Parliament, so it's intersubjective? Does it come from another source? Does it come from me? You know, if I'm a very mystical person and I reflect, that means ethics is coming from me. Or is it something very subjective? Doesn't matter, there is no objective thing. It's basically what I decide and you decide as individuals. That's the first thing. Where does right and wrong come from? And that branch is called meta-ethics. Second is normative ethics. Fine, I agree that the Quran and Sunnah are determining what right and wrong are. Then you ask, well, fine, I agree. How do we set standards for society? Like I was just discussing with a brother just now. Oh, well, how should I be cordial or cultivate a relationship with a woman or a man and woman together? What standard should we use? Should I use the standard that what gives me the greatest pleasure, that is the best standard? Should I use a very literalist interpretation and look at physical dress and modesty in an extremely literal way? Can we see that? Or should I look at it in a very universal way, that there's a principle here and I'm universalizing it, and therefore that allows me the freedom within a framework to act morally. Even if we agree that the Quran and Sunnah are starting points, we still have to set standards, and that requires interpretation. A third one, applied ethics, a field which as of yet is not a very big field in Islamic sciences, and I'm talking about at the seminary level and also within Muslim academia. Applied ethics is ethics like medical ethics or bioethics or social ethics. So we agree on a framework. We want, for example, God to be the starting point of society. But then you get specific situations. What happens in a hospital where things, as you all know in fiqh, for example, you have the issue of najasat, or you have the issue of a nurse, a female nurse, or a male nurse, and a male patient or a female patient. How should the ethics be between there? Or bioethics, the study of human nature when it comes to human genetics. So it means what you do with human biology. What is the ethics with regards to creating animal and human embryos, which is one of the current fields at the moment. So that area of applied ethics is how you apply those principles to specific situations. Fourth one,